President of Senegal has ordered France to close its military bases in this West African state. What is the significance of this historic decision by Senegal? Chad's government suddenly terminated a military partnership deal with its former colonial ruler France. What led to the breakdown of defense ties between these two countries? To discuss the move by Senegal to demand the exit of French troops in the country, we have contacted Galissa Boli. He is the Secretary General of the Patriots of Senegal party branch in the west coast of the United States. This is the current ruling party in Senegal. And to talk about the move by Chad to kick out French troops and diversify the country's international alliances, we are joined by Meki El Morgabi. He is a writer on African affairs and a former diplomat. This is Africa Today. I'm Mubarak Kenya. Stay with us. President Bassirou Diomaye Faye of Senegal recently called for the removal of French military bases from the country. Additionally, in May 2024, Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko criticized the presence of French troops, questioning their necessity in a sovereign nation. The French military has maintained a presence in Senegal since the country's independence in 1960. Officially, there are at least 400 French troops in the country. France claims its troops are in its former colony Senegal for training and regional security operations, but many believe they have been in this West African country to protect the interests of French and Western imperialism. Calls to eject French troops from Senegal come as the country commemorated the 80th anniversary of the Thiaroye massacre, when hundreds of African riflemen were killed by French forces in 1944 for demanding pay. So what is the significance of the decision by Senegal to eject French troops from the country?
France unwanted in Senegal. The France-Afrique system, a term coined by critics to describe the political, military, cultural and economic influence France still holds over its past African colonies, appears to be nearing its end. Until recently, France was Senegal's leading economic partner in West Africa, but with the new young leadership in Dakar, France is increasingly feeling unwanted in the country.
In his first speech after being appointed the Prime Minister of Senegal, Ousmane Sonko sharply criticized France and stated that the era of manipulation is over. Let's take a listen.
We're past the time when Africans could be manipulated by any people under any regime. And this feeling, which is evident today, has always been present, from independence to the present day.
Senegal's presidential election in March 2024 saw 44-year-old Bassirou Diomaye Faye emerge as Africa's youngest elected head of state. Faye was elected by the youth, demanding the end of exploitative relations with former colonial power France in response to the demands by the masses. President Faye has now called for the removal of French military bases from Senegal. Now, what is the significance of this move by President Faye?
The significance is actually telling the French people and letting our people know that we could not and we cannot accept anymore any foreign military presence in our land. And this, after that, actually, position from the President Faye, the whole country, the next day, was like we just have independence, because since the Senegalese country had independence, we always had this presence of French military in our country. And it was a big topic. It was a topic that every time people raised during elections, but any other president before went all the way into actually do it. So I think Faye position is actually a position that complete Mr. Ousmane Sonko in May 13, if you remember, had the same position at the University of Cheikh Anta Diop as a prime minister, saying that we could not accept anymore to delegate our security or to act like we are babies, so we need to fed or we need assistance from foreign countries. We are a full independent country that has all the institutions needed to take care of their own security. We could not accept anymore having any other foreign presence.
The decision to eject French troops from Senegal will definitely undermine efforts to restructure its troops' deployment in Africa after they were chased out of Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso, the three countries that make up the Sahel Alliance countries. The move by Senegal will challenge the French military presence in Africa.
France is just a manipulative country. French always sit among the NATO and other big, so-called big countries to show that, oh, we have still influence and power in Africa. They do not have any more power in Africa. They need to get out. That's what the populations of Africa want. That's what the population of different countries of Africa, where they are still present, want. And you can see now, there's not even a notice. Like, for example, the same week, Senegal took the decision to end the relationship between French military cooperation and Senegal. Chad took the same radical decision, and they all actually asked right away to get out of Chad. Same process will happen here. So if you look at the recent geopolitical, behaviors of Western countries, it's military. Like 90% of them is military. So if you don't have any more a military presence or a military influence in these ex-colonies, I mean, basically, I would say you don't have any more voice. Even at the UN, French will actually, I would say, sink. French influence and French leadership is completely degrading. It's going down because they manipulated these African countries for years. But now with this new generation that is more and more opening up to other relationship, to other bilateral economic relations, to other military relations, and kicking France out, because so that impact is what we are seeing. And also for us, basically, it's the independence, it's freedom time.
In an interview with French TV, President Faye addressed the issue of French soldiers currently stationed in the country's capital, Dakar, across various military bases. Let's take a listen.
As French people, could you imagine seeing us in your country with tanks or military vehicles, with Senegalese soldiers in Senegalese uniforms? That's what history has been like. France has enslaved, colonized, and remained.
That's indeed a strong statement by the President of Senegal. Now, will Western imperialist powers accept that their manipulation of Africa is over?
Well, I mean, they have to. The manipulation is over. The pressure that African countries or underdeveloped countries could have accepted, from the imperialism system or powers is over. We are a new generation. The President Bassirou Diomaye Faye is the youngest democratically elected president in Africa.
Bassirou Faye of Senegal is Africa's youngest democratically elected. Faye didn't come out of familiar political class, but out of a Pan-Africanist political trend, gaining popularity among the young people of Africa. Many believe his decision represents the view of young people of Africa who want to do away with neo-colonial powers that continue to pillage Africa's resources.
This President Faye decision is a resonated decision through the whole continent. If you look at today, the generation that are fighting or the opposition leaders that are looking for power, you go to Uganda, you go to South Africa, you come here to Sub-Saharan Africa, you look at these, the economic freedom fighters in South Africa. The leader is young. You go to Uganda, the guy is young. You came here. It's a position and a speech that people actually relate. And our project, the project that President Bassirou Diomaye Faye presented to the Senegalese people, is a developed Senegalese country within Africa in progression. So everything they do it, in the benefit also of the continent.
Senegal recently commemorated the 80th anniversary of a colonial era massacre of African soldiers who fought for France during the World War II and were shot by French soldiers in 1944 for demanding fair treatment and payment on their return. A survivor of the massacre speaks out here.
It is in the spirit of sacrifice that we are here to remember and start unearthing the truth of a massacre the French military attempted to bury.
The West African country of Senegal has long demanded its former colonizer take responsibility, officially apologize, and properly investigate the massacre. France's President Emmanuel Macron has only admitted that his country's troops were responsible for the massacre. Now, is this enough?